Good morning. Welcome to Cumbria Flood and Coast Forum. It's a long time since we all came together to talk about coastal and flood risk management. And this is an opportunity to reconnect and to share some of our learning and to also look forward. But first, an introduction from me. My name's Angela Jones. I'm Executive Director at Cumbria County Council, and I'll be jointly sharing this initial session with Stuart Mounsey, where we're going to talk about some of the national and local policy context. I'd like to start with some reflections looking back over the last 3 years, and let's start with the COVID-19 pandemic. A thank you to all of our critical and key workers across a wide range of partnerships who responded in an exceptional way to deliver services and to support our communities. But I'd like to give a heartfelt thanks to our community groups, our third sector, our volunteers, those who stepped up, mobilising their volunteers and resources to protect and support the most vulnerable. Thank you. I'd also like to reflect on the political and national landscape. There's been a range of domestic and foreign policy issues, including the Ukraine crisis, EU exit, and a number of other changes which have amplified some of that volatility in our supply chain and rising inflation. And not surprisingly, some of our government's policies and reforms have been delayed or temporarily postponed. We're working with our partnerships and in that uncertain environment. I think it's really important in Cumbria that we proceed with some of our policies and action and interventions, regardless of the national policy context, albeit recognising that it is really important that we get that direction and steer from a national government level. And part of that is recognition that living costs are rising, inflation's at a 30-year high, and with increasing food, fuel and energy costs, more and more people are unable to meet their basic living needs. COVID and that spike in cost of living have hit the most vulnerable, especially hard. Local government and partners are having to redirect and reprioritise our resources to support those who are suffering the greatest hardship and to address those increasing demands on health and social care. And over the last 18 months, we've been preparing for major transformation across the local government family. The 7 local authorities will be replaced by 2 unitary councils on the 1st of April 2023, and I'll talk more about that later. But since we've last met, we've had lots of adverse weather events with localised flooding. We've also experienced coastal flooding and coastal erosion. And today we're going to focus on some of those coastal communities. There'll be a session later on coastal strategy. But it's not just flooding and coastal erosion. We've also had a number of named storms, most notably Storm Arwen, where over 100,000 properties were without power. And it caused huge disruption. We also had snow, lots of other things as well to deal with. But many properties were without power, without electricity, without broadband, landline and mobile phone masts. And thousands of trees, sadly, were also brought down in that storm. Again, I'd like to thank everybody involved in that response from our community groups and other agencies and partners who responded to that incident. But on a positive note in relation to trees, we have secured funding for a coastal community forest where 150 hectares of woodland and forest will be planted in Cumbria. And the community forest will bring multiple benefits, economic, environmental and social benefits, including contribution to flood alleviation. But it's not the only thing that's happening in terms of nature-based solutions, and you'll hear a little bit later about some of the other activity. There's nutrient neutrality, biodiversity net gain, we're working in partnership and securing funding on a whole range of projects and initiatives related to nature. And we're also working in partnership through the Zero Carbon Cumbria Partnership, where there is a shared ambition to achieve net zero by 2037. It's ambitious and inspiring challenge that will touch on many of our communities. It will hopefully, through working in partnership, we'll be able to reduce our emissions, but also, importantly for today, is to adapt to climate changes that we can no longer avoid and that are outside of our control. So looking forward to covering many of these issues today through the sessions, with time to reflect and look back and also look forward. Thank you very much.